The meat industry are not sending their best. This is a post I made on LinkedIn, tagging a few people who I had seen posting various nonsense about animal farming, factory farming, plant-based alternatives in some cases. I said the meat industry are not sending their best. Recently I've seen lots of posts claiming that red meat is not unhealthy, that plant-based meat is bad, or even that factory farming is okay. Let me change the name of the stream here. That's better. Recently I've seen lots of posts claiming that red meat is not unhealthy, plant-based meat is bad, and even that factory farming is okay. But when I comment on them, the people who post these things, like Malta Rubak, Andrea Botaglio, and Natalie Kovarek, are totally incapable of defending what they're saying. Damn, if this was pre-recorded I would have cut out my voice breaking there and sounded much more hard, but you know, perils of live stream, I guess. I even posted a couple of weeks back asking for livestock industry people who think they can defend current levels of meat consumption or industrial farming systems, and got 0 volunteers. Let's be extremely clear, these livestock industry representatives, and many others, including prominent scientists, are refusing to debate because they cannot defend their pro-livestock positions. 82 comments, that's good. there was some discourse here. This is Andrea Bertaglio's favourite thing to post on my LinkedIn posts. This little meme that says, "Never underestimate the power of your irrelevance." Not gonna lie, this made me laugh the first time I saw it. Not as much the 10th time I saw it, but you know, still, he's done well there. 4 likes. So I commented, Andrea Bertaglio turned down €1,000 to debate me, which is the current record. Somebody else, presumably also a pro-meat person, indicating that she values her time. First of all, misgendered, cancelled. And I said, indicating that he's so unconfident in his position, they would sooner lose €1,000 than try to defend it in public. I can't believe this is actually a thing that happened. Honestly, when I was making that video, well, / when I was having that interaction with this guy in his comment section on LinkedIn, I was thinking surely at some point he's going to say, all right then, give me the €1,000. And he just didn't. I went up. I first offered him 100, then offered him 200, then 500, and I realised that he was just absolutely terrified to try and defend what he was saying. So I eventually offered him €1,000 to come and debate. I said, an hour of your time, right? €1,000, come and debate. And he wouldn't do it. I mean, how little conviction do you have to turn down $1,000 to try and defend your view in public for €1,000? This is my new favourite villain, Gianpietro Sandri. Well, I say favourite villain. I mean, he's been a good villain recently, but he's not that clouty. I looked at him, I was going to debate him. He's not anyone. He's not a scientist, doesn't have publications. He's a vet, I guess. He's a vet in Italy. He says, another vegan warrior that I would drop in the middle of some African forest with plenty of roots and vegetables to eat and leave him there for 1 year. Then we'll start discuss again. I mean, that's inappropriate on LinkedIn. This guy's been, you know, one of the roguest characters I've interacted with, I feel. I said, want to debate? He said, wasted time, and I have little. Right, always first response, right? Oh, I don't really have time. I don't really have time. I'm not going to do that. I don't have time. I said, what if I pay you? He said, thanks. I'm busy enough. So no amount specified here. Right, what if I pay you? Some open-ended amount. No. Refusal, right? Open offer of payment, and he's not going to do it. He's going to run from the debate. I said, oh, I knew that you would be unable to defend what you said. I just wanted to be very clear that I just wanted that to be very clear to you and to everybody else. Next time you go to comment something obnoxious on a vegan post, I'll remind you that you're incapable of defending what you're saying, even if you're paid. I'll get you on the list. Oh, I have another one for the list, by the way. My spreadsheet of meat industry representatives who won't debate me. It's actually a pretty big name as well, so I'm happy about that. I'll show you that afterwards. He said, "You're provocative, but again, no time to waste with the so-called vegan. You're on the wrong side." So-called vegan. That's all right. I said, "You're saying no time to waste, but ignoring I'm offering to buy your time. Just be honest and say, I'm scared to debate you because I know I'll look like a fool." No more replies after that. Here's one of the guys that I tagged. This is Mr. Expert, M.R. Ruberg. He says, "I'm not a representative of the meat industry, rather for food in general." Okay, so, I mean, some of his clients are going to be in the meat industry, I don't doubt. A lot of what he posts is in defense of meat, in defense of animal products. Here's a book I wrote, brackets in German, "The Biggest Plant-Based Nutrition Myths, Why Vegans Aren't Always Right, But Sometimes They Are, Scientifically Sound Information on Plant-Based Nutrition Myths." All right, I'm obviously not going to read his book in German. There's a lot of misinformation on it, but that said, I have read many of his posts in German, which I can translate. And, yeah, that's right, Jeremy, yeah. Which I can translate and know that he's talking nonsense, basically. We had an interaction. He was actually running the exact same argument as Paul Wood, and he was talking about the global burden of disease stuff and how the evidence only shows weak evidence for harmful health effects of red meat. And I said, "Oh, do you have the same standards for chewing tobacco and for secondhand smoke?" And after that, he viewed my LinkedIn profile. That's one of my favorite things about LinkedIn. You get a notification when someone views you. He viewed my profile, looked at my previous posts, and then came back and said, "Actually, I'd rather not debate." Okay. Continues, "There's a lot of misinformation on all sides. You, Chris Bryant, seem to have little knowledge of nutrition, brackets, you're a social scientist, but want to talk and debate with everyone about it." I said, "If you really think I have little knowledge of nutrition, why don't you debate me and prove it? People can see for themselves who is more confident in their knowledge here. I'm the one saying, let's have a conversation and find out. You're the one making excuses and appealing to authority. Paul Wood took the debate. Glenn Burrows took the debate. Why is it that you won't take the debate?" Paul Wood, so you're considering an English translation of your book, right? Okay, we've got someone else diving in here. I don't know how much I want to go off on one here. So, oh, here we go. We've got Malta Rubeck comes back, just answers about the English publishing, doesn't answer anything that I've said, after having said, I know nothing about nutrition, and not responding to me saying, why don't you debate it and prove it then? We don't need to read the blurb of his book. Maybe we'll find out about it if he ever decides to come and defend it. Yeah, I'm not going to do the whole long post with this other guy about whether or not debate's a good thing. I'll put the links to this in the chat there in case people want to to spend your evening reading this. Now this was the big one, and he got 22 likes, which I'm not going to lie, I'm fuming. We're almost getting ratioed here, guys. What have I got? Well, I got 33 on the post. Alright, well. Jesus, MR Expert's got 10. These guys have got a very low bar. My issue is now that I've added a lot of people in the meat industry to try and debate them, to try and talk to them. But now, of course, they see all my posts, and so they come and weigh in and like each other's comments and so on. So, you know, any LinkedIners, come and back me up over there. Paul Wood says, "Chris, I know you love to run this narrative that you are the vegan warrior fighting the evil meat lords, but you run the same story over and over, the same ideologically driven rhetoric and arguments. I debated you and you never listened to any of the counter points I made of. So why should anyone else waste their time? The answer to your question is you are just not that relevant to the big challenges that face those interested in global food security." I said, "Which part of what I said was ideologically driven rhetoric? Was it the part where you knew absolutely nothing about the studies you cited and then left out the part of the quote when citing it? Or maybe it was the part where you knew nothing about the Dublin Declaration's authors' failures to disclose their conflicts of interest. Perhaps it was the part where you said that most animals don't suffer on factory farms. You made yourself look a fool in that debate, Paul. People like Malta Rubak are saving their own egos by avoiding exposing themselves in a debate. It's as simple as that. Going quite hard for LinkedIn, not gonna lie. Paul Wood has the audacity to say, the outcome of the debate I'll leave others to judge. Your comments about the... I mean, come on. Is there anyone... We're going to finish watching the... doing a review of the Paul Wood debate. Is there anyone who thinks that he looked good in that debate? I asked him 3 times if animals suffer on factory farms, and after not answering twice, he said, in most cases, no. Does anyone think that he's being serious or being honest with that? He's not answered to any of the points that I said, the 3 things that he absolutely failed on in the debate. And by the way, we already counted 4 things that he failed on in the first half of that debate review the other day. So we'll do the second half soon, and maybe we'll get up to double digits. Who knows? Your comments about the Dublin Declaration I already addressed as largely meaningless. Meaningless again. We should really grammar check these. Your continued attack on people and not the issues is unprofessional. It's not too surprising others do not wish to join your sideshow. Well, that's all very well and good, but he had absolutely nothing to say on the issues, right? He was completely clueless on the issue about the Dublin Declaration authors' failure to disclose their conflicts of interest. He was completely clueless about the actual methodology of the global burden of diseases study that he was citing. I'm not convinced that he knows anything about those studies. And I mean, being asked 3 times if animals suffer on factory farms and then eventually on the 3rd time saying no. It's just clearly dishonest behaviour. I said, I agree people should watch the debate and decide who made more sense. My debate with Paul, where he doesn't know a lot of details about the Dublin Declaration, doesn't seem to know anything about the burden of proof studies he likes to cite, and says that most animals don't suffer on factory farms. I could add to this list, actually. We could go back and... this is 2 weeks ago. Maybe we could stoke this drama again. Paul says, you like to pretend you know a lot about GBD studies. No, I don't. I said, well, I won't spoil my next comment. So you'll be interested to read this paper by one of the experts in the field, Alice Stanton. This is another thing they love to do, by the way. Link a whole paper and then say, well, you need to go and read that paper before we can talk about this. If there is something in that paper that supports the point you want to make, you should be able to tell me that. You are the one making the point. The burden is on you to provide proper evidence. This is actually Dublin Declaration style, frankly, where they say, for evidence, see this entire journal special issue. So this is actually very much the style of the Dublin Declaration. Go and read this whole paper. I'm not actually going to specify the relevant argument from this paper, but if you want to talk about this issue, you need to engage with this whole paper. I said, I don't pretend any such... He said, you'd like to pretend you know a lot about the GBD studies. I said, I don't pretend any such thing. I actually said in our conversation, this is not an area that I know loads about. But even so, it looks like I know more than you. That's why you can't give a sensible answer on why you're sceptical about the negative health effects of red meat, but not secondhand smoking, despite the same strength of evidence for both. It's super clear now what the issue is. I've flattered myself, I've been a very good job of making this clear. You can see even this little image that I made to repost every time that Paul Wood's trying to obfuscate on this issue. Here's the section in blue that he quoted. Our results reinforce the harmful effects of secondhand smoke on health and the need to prioritise advancing efforts to reduce active and passive smoking through a combination of public health policies and education initiatives. Here's the part that he didn't post. Despite the weak underlying evidence for these associations. So with the same weak underlying evidence for the associations, he wants to go and look at the red meat evidence and say, well, this is too weak to recommend any restrictions on red meat. But with the same weak underlying evidence, he's not saying the same thing for secondhand smoke. And when he copy-pasted this section of the paper into a conversation that we were having, he left out this first half of the sentence highlighted in red. This is as clear evidence as you could hope for that he is engaging with this completely dishonestly. He says, I've answered this several times and I support the conclusions drawn by the authors of both these papers. If you disagree with these papers, take it up with the authors, which is how science normally works. I said, you can't account for why the conclusions are different given the same level of evidence observed. That's why you refuse to quote the studies next to each other, and why you selectively quoted the study when you did. Anybody who is following this knows you're wrong on this point. I feel that this is really clear. Tell me in chat if this is like a bit of a complex point that you know, he is relying, and these, you know, science washing meatheads are relying on people thinking, oh, this is a bit too complicated for me to engage with. Maybe there's some people saying this, there's some people saying that, right? Who knows, really? He is just being clearly dishonest, as demonstrated by his engagement with the actual studies when challenged on them. And again, I recommend you read the papers in full as they state why they came to their conclusions. If they state that, you should be able to tell me. Why don't you just copy-paste that part of the paper? If it's so clear to you why they've come to different conclusions, given the same level of evidence, you should be able to tell me why that is. I said, you can't reproduce the explanation, though. He says, what, no comment on Alex Stanton's paper? You prefer to continue with the same meaningless comments above? Have any of my comments been meaningless here? I'm literally just asking him for a direct argument, and he is just linking papers and pretending that he's given one. I said, you haven't given any arguments, just a link. If you actually have an argument you can make, then link a citation. You can't say, go read this whole paper. I thought I taught you about proper citations in the Dublin Declaration debate. No reply to that. This is an interesting one. We've got this guy who calls himself International Swine Management Consultant. So more pigs in cages is likely his job description. I'll be sure to send you a copy of the article I'm working on when it's finished. The working title is Arguing with Vegans and Other Exercises in Futility. God, that's so witty. Paul Woods actually commented, when I argue publicly with people like Chris, he is not my target audience, as he is hardwired to his beliefs. It's all the people who read these posts and don't understand how they cherry-pick the data to promote their narrative. I do hear from silent people to say thanks on providing an alternative view. Yes, his is the alternative view. That's a correct characterization, because his is not in line with the science, as has been demonstrated several times in this thread. So I'm glad that he refers to his as the alternative view. The projection here is unbelievable as well. Read these posts and don't understand how they cherry-pick the data to promote their narrative. I mean, this guy is completely incapable of giving a good account of his view on the science here. I said, I don't say this often, but I largely agree with Paul Wood here. My goal is not to change his mind, brackets I know he can't, but to show the audience that his view is not tenable. For example, Paul Wood takes the view that most animals don't suffer on factory farms. When he said that, I said, okay, we can leave it there, because I know he's shown the audience that he has a silly position. So you could say that was futile on one level, but I think a lot of people seeing that Paul Wood believes most animals don't suffer on factory farms will tend to harm his credibility. So, Todd Thurman, do let me know if you finish publishing your excuses not to debate. That'll be great content, honestly. And if you actually decide that you can defend your beliefs, then feel free to hit me up. We can talk anytime. So as I promised you guys, this post about how people from the meat industry won't debate and defend their views has prompted a lot of comments from people from the meat industry who won't debate and defend their views. It's actually been a remarkable demonstration of the exact point that I was making in the post. Oh, here's some good back and forth further with our new favourite villain, Jean-Pierre Sandry. So we got this guy first of all. That's hilarious. You're a self-proclaimed expert with a couple of degrees in nothing and no experience in anything. This is such meaningless rhetoric. And you think people will want to stroke your ego by agreeing to argue with you. How would that stroke my ego? Tell me, have you ever stepped foot on a real working farm? Oh, that's such a great question. Oh my God, King. I thought that was our thing, right? I thought that was a woke thing, saying unless you've actually had the experience, you can't have any comments on it. Isn't that meant to be our thing, guys? Hey, thanks for dropping in, Jeremy. I appreciate you. I said, you're saying a whole lot of silly stuff for someone who's about to refuse to debate. And then this guy comes back again, says, I'm still waiting for the money. I don't know where he thought oh, actually, I don't know the order of these comments. But even so, the previous interaction was me offering him money and him still saying no, so... He's double commented, but I suspect that at this point you have nothing serious to say, if not the usual worthless stuff. I mean, it's so meaningless. They haven't pointed to anything that I've said that's incorrect, anything that I've said that is not to the point, right? These guys just say, oh, you don't make sense, or you're married TV. There's no evidence to suggest this, but okay. I said, for someone who has no time to waste, you sure pipe up a lot. If you are down to debate, I will happily put 200 euros in escrow. Let's do it. I said, ironically, I was about to say that you actually haven't said anything of substance that we could debate, only that you would like to drop me in the jungle and see how long I survive. But don't worry, I have seen some of your positions and I know how to make that a good conversation. Comments, 2 pig emojis. This is like a real-life professional troll, right? This is like a 60-something-year-old vet. Which, by the way, he is not making 200 euros an hour. So if he comes and debates me, he'll be, increasing his earning power. I said, add it to the list of meat industry people who can't defend their views. He says, my pro bono time is really over. I will not spend 1 extra minute to try to object. Oh, he does. I will not spend 1 extra minute to try to object, explain, convince one like you. It's so poetic about this. I love arguing with people whose first language is not English, because it always comes out so poetically. I would be like trying to convince the Terapiatisti, those who believe that our planet, okay, it's flat earthers. Planet Heart, alright, okay. That you can sail the oceans without falling down. I'm not really sure I understand what really practically your work job consists in, but if you're able to sell fake meat to fancy rich people who don't care what they are eating, this is no crime. Keep going. Okay, he clearly doesn't understand what my job is. No, he really doesn't. We, the animal protein people, will keep producing to feed a growing world, demand real meat, eggs, etc. Right, well, what heroes, right? I said another one who would sooner lose 200 euros than to try and defend himself against a vegan. He says, told you already, my pro bono time is over and 200 euros is toilet paper. I told you this guy's a good villain. I mean, really, what an attitude. I said, that's already more than you're worth to me, I'm afraid. Everyone can see that I'm so confident of beating you in a debate that I would pay to prove it. Everyone can see that you're so unconfident of losing a debate that you would pay to avoid it. Maybe that should have been confident of losing a debate. That shows us all more than a debate would. You know you can't defend your views. That's it. I feel like I'm brutally clear in these. I don't get taken off on whatever he's trying to flex on his income or whatever. But this is good. This gets better. I can't resist, but my time is worth money. Explain what a debate consists of, but you'd need to put some money in. What about 20,000 euros? Would you debate? Does this guy think I'm going to give him 20,000 euros for a half-an-hour Skype call? This is unhinged. He said, I'm afraid you're unable to defend your stupid theories, or you have no money. Maybe your business is not so profitable after all. I love these comments that show so clearly they are in a totally different mindset. They don't understand what's motivating me at all. As if I would reply to this and be like, oi, my business is profitable. That is not going to be something that upsets me, mate. My business is not very profitable, and it's deliberately run that way because I'm trying to give more value to animal organisations. But I'm not even going to begin to try to explain that to this bloke. He's trying to bait me into giving him 20 grand for a debate. Honestly, he's way overshot this. If he needs the cash, he should have said like 500, right? And then maybe I would have considered it, or at least I would have looked like a fool if I would have offered 200 and then he said 500 and I said no, that's too much. But when he goes to 20 grand, I mean, it's obvious to everyone that he's basically refusing the debate. This is a way of saying, no, I didn't refuse. But essentially, yeah, he's scared to debate, right? I said, haha, nice try, you're not worth that much. I'm happy to leave it here. I've offered you 200 euros an hour to debate, which is more money than you make. You have declined because you know you can't defend your views. This is all on a post which is specifically about pro-meat people being unable to defend their views. What did you think was going to happen here? This interaction shows everybody that you have no confidence in your views, and that's good enough for me. He says, goodbye, Mr. Nothing, which, who knows what that means, I mean. Some other meat industry person, right, or dairy farmer, actually, dairy industry person. Says, as much as you say others are entrenched, you are just as entrenched as well. This was a red flag straight away because I haven't said entrenched anywhere here, and he's put this in quote marks. So although he's not really a mischaracterization of my view, I mean, I do think that people on that side are entrenched in certain views, but the fact that I haven't said it but he's put it in quote marks immediately made me think this guy's not going to be the sharpest tool in the shed. He says, no, this is great as well. Nope, not taking the clickbait, and it's just not worth the effort in futility. Meaningful debate requires both sides to actually listen to the other side and truly comprehend the other's viewpoint. So this guy is declining the debate before he's actually been offered. That is a new level of debate dodging. That is pretty special, don't you think? I haven't actually asked this guy to, I haven't said anything to him yet. And he's come on and said, just as you say you're entrenched, just as you say others are entrenched, yours is entrenched as well. Before I've said anything, by the way, I'm not going to debate you. That would be really pointless. This would be futile. Okay. I said, if you think I don't understand your view, you can show that in a debate. In my last debate, I got to understand my opponent's view that most animals don't suffer on factory farms, which was surprising. It's quite telling that nobody else thinks they can give a convincing defense of the livestock industry. He says it's not about a convincing defense, it's about meaningful debate. Your approach of essentially calling people out isn't a wise one and is telling. The name dropping for me is a big, huge red flag. Yeah, people get really sensitive about this. I mean, these people who I've tagged are broadcasting their own views. Right, when I tag them in a post that says, we've got these people saying that red meat's unhealthy, plant-based meat's bad, and that factory farming's okay, and then being unable to defend their views, I'm rebroadcasting that, but they are broadcasting it. Right, Malta Rubak is posting nonsense about the health effects of red meat and being completely unable to defend it. Andrea Bertaglio is posting nonsense about plant-based meat and being completely unable to defend it. Natalie Kovaric, who, by the way, is a podcaster, and should definitely be up for having this conversation, is posting nonsense about factory farming and totally incapable of defending it. So I'm tagging them here and calling them out, but they are the ones who have broadcast these views and the inability to defend these views. So they have already made this public by doing that. It says, from my perspective as a beef/dairy farmer and dairy producer, there's a near zero chance anything I would present as a defence would be accepted in your eyes as valid, let alone enough to change your entrenched position. This is also pretty much why I've quit debating on social media. Love all these people saying they're not going to debate on social media whilst debating on social media, by the way. Pretty much why. Pretty much quit. Alright, well, if you don't want to have a meaningful debate, I won't waste too much time in the comments. I'll just say these are all individuals who are posting misinformation that I'm calling out and are then unwilling to defend it. even for cash in many cases. Seems like the behavior of people who know they can't defend what they're posting. He says, again, it's your approach and perhaps it's you who's misinformed. I said, then come and show me how. He said, nope, because you'll immediately start the "you're spreading misinformation" tactic. Not much of a tactic, is it? That's just a phrase. Again, it's your approach. When you openly say someone you're debating is spreading misinformation because you don't believe or accept their position, there's no meaningful debate to be had. Now, that's an interesting characterization of why I would say they're spreading misinformation, because I don't believe or accept their position. What about if their position is incorrect with respect to reality? Would that be a reasonable grounds for saying someone's spreading misinformation? I feel like it would be. Continues, debate is as much about acknowledging the position of the other side as it is about articulating yours without resulting in petty name-calling. Okay, acknowledging the position is not the same as accepting the position. What he wants is for me to accept his position. And if I am not going to accept his position, then somehow I'm not having a proper debate. He says, that's really what's wrong these days. Everyone has to win or prove their point at any cost, rather than the more tactical approach of learning and gaining traction by articulating your position effectively. He said, Gianpietro's back. He says, Dave, don't waste your time. You can't convince a deaf person he can hear. Another nice poetic English as a foreign language thing, by the way. We say, there's none so blind as those who can't see. This is, I guess the Italian equivalent is the audio version, which, you know, quirky. Oh yeah, this is where he says something on name. What does he say about name calling? Yeah, debate is as much about acknowledging the position of the other side as it is about articulating yours without resulting in petty name calling. I said, who's name calling? It's not some sort of underhanded trick to say something is misinformation. It's not a good sign of bad faith if someone doesn't just accept your position. You say there's no negative health impact associated with red meat consumption, or most animals don't suffer on factory farms. That's misinformation. It's not because I don't like it, or I'm entrenched in my position. It's because it's incorrect with respect to the facts of the world. Here's the thing. If you think that you can express your view clearly, or show some problem with my view, then it actually doesn't matter whether I accept that. Show it in a debate, and the audience will make up their own minds. For example, Paul Wood didn't accept my view that most animals suffer on factory farms. That's okay. Now we have him on video saying most animals don't suffer on factory farms, and the audience can decide who they think made more sense. I don't expect you to debate, and you're smart not to, because it wouldn't go well for you. He says, who's name calling? Literally in your post, you are ×3. You specifically call out 3 people. For what it's worth, that last statement, that's not name calling, pal. For what it's worth, that last statement was uncalled for. Further proof debating you would be totally pointless and a waste of everyone's time. Say along, keyboard warrior, I'm out. I said, when people say name calling, they don't normally mean calling people their own name. I would say I'm calling out people, but I'm not calling anybody names. That's fine. I've come to expect people to have strong opinions in comment sections and then be unable to back them up in conversation. You're in good company on this thread. Take it easy, friend. He says, when you openly use people's names and accuse them of spreading misinformation as your primary tactic, it's pretty simple. Your approach is abrasive, which isn't constructive, nor does it make for a good discussion. Bye-bye. Well, I haven't replied to this. What should I say to someone who is, in fact, spreading misinformation? Should I just politely ignore that? Got somebody here saying organic meat gives us all vitamins and proteins we need. I just said, I don't suppose you would care for a debate. No reply. Shock. Here's our friend Andrea Bertaglio again, posting the same meme. I'm not joking, he posts this every time. And I said, context, this guy Andrea Bertaglio is salty over this interaction. Link the video. He said, you must be very bored, mate, and very boring. Fine. Good good argument, I guess. Well, we've got some other post over here. This guy could be a good next villain. Frank Mitloner is a notorious spreader of misleading science on these topics. And he made a post complaining that people had misrepresented his work and were villainizing livestock farmers. And I commented on that. Let's have a look. Lately, I've seen articles that twist my words on methane, global warming potential star. So this, yeah, the whole thing comes down to this GWP star, which basically they've invented a metric by which meat isn't bad for the environment, and they're advocating that everyone should use that so that they can continue farming animals. Essentially, that's long story short. Oh yeah, sure thing, Rebecca. Do you want to post it in the chat? Or you can send me on Discord or something. So he says, lately I've seen some articles that twist my words on methane, global warming potential, and the role of farmers in the climate fight. As a professor and researcher, I welcome debate. Remember this, folks, remember this. That misrepresentation undermines real solutions. That's why I felt the need to speak out about these misinformed and inaccurate articles. For more than 2 decades, my research has focused on science-based solutions that make livestock systems more sustainable, improving animal welfare, worker safety, productivity, and environmental outcomes. And I've done that work alongside the very people too often blamed in this conversation, farmers and ranchers. Okay, so he's telling us that he has, you know, if nothing else, emotional, social connections with people involved in the livestock industry. And in fact, there's a lot more connections than that. In this next paragraph's good. Producers aren't the villains of climate change. They are essential partners in the solution. With the right tools and support, agriculture can shift from being a source of emissions to a powerful climate ally. This is a great sentence that... This is a very Dublin Declaration sentence in that it's not incorrect, but it gives an incorrect impression. Hidden in the middle of this clause, agriculture can shift from being a source of emissions. So it's not obvious when you read this sentence, but part of this sentence is agriculture is a source of emissions. With the right tools and support, it could shift from that to being a climate ally. So it's actually not offering any defense of the current system, it seems. The path forward involves real... Another great quote here. The path forward involves having real conversations, ones that aren't about blame but about solutions. Anything else is just noise. Read more about how I'm setting the record straight. He's linked to some blog post that he's written. Great. I said, as someone who welcomes debate, would you care to have a real conversation with me? No reply. A day later I said, hi Frank, I haven't heard from you. Would you like to have a debate with me on this topic? No reply. Well, I'm persistent. So I found his next most recent post, which is about something that the UC Davis Dean is doing. Shame that UC Davis are involved in employing this guy who's a purveyor of misinformation on meat and the environment. It's a shame for them. I commented, hi Frank, I challenged you to a debate on your recent post about GWP, but I haven't heard from you. Can you actually defend your position on that topic? Again, he goes and views my profile, which is just a great feature on LinkedIn. People go and check you out and see, like, what's this guy doing? You know about it. I like it when it happens to me, and I like it when I do it to other people as well. We've just been on this guy's profile. He'll have got a little notification for that. Oh, this guy's checking me out again. He says, after I saw you in your Frederick shirt, you lost my respect. I'm not interested in that level of connection. Hey, my Frederick shirt bangs. All right. I said I had a very respectful debate with Paul Wood, which was entirely focused on the science, and I uncovered a few problems with his views. If you think you can defend your views well, I'm interested in a respectful conversation, especially since your last post said you are open to debate. So this one's only a few hours ago, but no reply from Frank. I wonder, people can go and encourage this guy to engage a bit more. Maybe I'll link to the last post. Yeah. So this is the post where I've commented. Oh, thanks, Rebecca. I appreciate that. This is the post where I've commented asking him for a debate. I actually can't see any article that you've posted, Rebecca. Do you post it in the chat here? Maybe it got removed? Let me mod you. I think that enables you to post links. Cool. All right, try posting again, Rebecca, and I'll see if I can get that. So this guy is another big name in meat world. He's, I would say on par with Freddie Leroy in terms of notoriousness. That's a word. Notoriety, I guess, is the word. And actually, we can add him to the spreadsheet of meat industry figures who won't debate me. Let's add you in here. There's Gianpietro Sandri, there's Malta Rubac, Frank Mitlona, Professor, UC Davis. Added September 2025. And right now he is refusing. And topic GWP. We haven't offered him any money yet. Should we offer him some money? I was thinking for people like this, it might be the play to offer them like donations to their department or something like that. I mean, frankly, I'm not going to be offering sums that university donations department would care that much about. But I like offering some money just because they look a bit silly when they can't defend their view. Oh, yes, it did. Thank you, Rebecca. Animal Charity Evaluators Review. Okay. Yeah, I can take a look at this. Why not? So that was all for the LinkedIn drama, guys. That was well timed, Rebecca, because I was at the end of going over that stuff. And we're up to 17 people on my list of meat industry figures who won't debate at this point. Which, not gonna lie, is a real shame for the content here. But not as much as it is a shame for them and their confidence. I mean, some of these people, many of them have blocked me now, but all of them is just so obvious when you're putting something out there and have no intention of defending it and know that you can't back it up. It's so easily exposed, and because everyone's very polite, especially people on our side, we're very polite about pointing things out and not, being mean to people. But it's easy to lose the big picture view. Like, these are people who are knowingly lying in order to put more knives in throats. And have no intention of actually defending what they're saying to that end. So, yeah. That's all, right? There's, if you know people in the meat industry, or, you know, I'm looking to debate scientists and really anybody who thinks that they can defend the view. I shouldn't say anybody, I'm not going to debate anybody, but I'm interested in debating like people with a bit of a profile who think that they can defend the view that there's any defense of today's level of animal product consumption, or factory farming, or of specific documents is the other thing that I said, Dublin Declaration and a couple of others. But okay, let's have a look at this